This is the A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott, at Akron Jackson, at Dre Knott, on most of your favorite social media platforms. You can find this on iTunes, on Spotify, at facebook.com/A to Z podcast, and at A to Z podcast.com. And Dre, I'm chuckling/struggling. About 30 seconds ago, I was plugging everything in, making sure it was good, because we know sometimes that's an issue. I was waiting to hear back from you or text. Anyway, picked up this bottle of water, took a larger than extra swig of it, and before I finished swallowing it, there was like a loud noise outside, so I looked, and I don't know if I just failed to swallow or my body shut down for a second, but I saw Jesus there for a minute. I was coughing, hacking, sneezing, shooting water out of my nose. And anyway, I'm glad to be here talking sports and life with you.
There's so many things I want to say off of that. So many things. Most of them are inappropriate and not ready, and we haven't told people how much of a jackass A to Z can be. So if you're sitting by a kid or if you're sitting at work, let them all in and let them know what real people talk about. But if you're not ready to do that and take that step, make sure you put in your headphones or change the station and come back later. I was thinking you were going to say something like you left the car out of gear and it ran through your backyard or something like that. I didn't realize you'd be choking on all big water. You're a special, special, special guy. So this is I was just talking in the Indians clubhouse to a few people. If you're a big NFL follower, this is the time where you hold your breath for the next month and a half. And you truly find out in the NFL who your dumbest players are, because they all know the weed man test is coming in like 6 weeks. And the NFL will even reach out and tell the players, hey, you're going to get tested in 2-3 weeks. Make sure you're clean. So you find out the dumbest guys in the NFL, but you also hold your breath and hope that, things like extortion, drug allegations, and things like that don't pop up out of nowhere and ruin that fantasy football team that you've been putting together since last June.
Well, no doubt fantasy football is what counts most. But you're right. This is the this is the time of the year that coaches sweat. And with older, more polished teams, they'll say they don't, but they still do. These rookies just got a lot of money. They just got a lot more Instagram followers than they used to, and they're basically turned loose. Now the Browns, even though for the veterans it's over, the Browns rookies are around for the next couple of weeks doing orientation programs and working some youth camps and doing their regular workouts, but they're not practicing. They're not having curfew. They're not having 15-hour days that would make them go to bed like they were the last 5 weeks. So it is a little dangerous. Right. Freddie discussed it last week. He more or less said we don't have many set rules around here. One of them is do the right thing. So you hope that nobody's got the police behind him at 4:30 in the morning. Nobody's causing an incident in front of 9 cell phone cameras or law enforcement officials. It's a different world these guys live in, and absolutely, even for guys that aren't troublemakers, it's scary out there.
Yeah, it's a different world out there. It really is. I'll tell you what, I didn't know this until you said it, but it's very Terry Francona-like, and I think very much how I hope to be as a parent. The more rules you make, the more rules that are going to get broken.
Yeah.
So you simplify it. To me, make one simple rule that kind of covers it all, right? Like with Tito, it's real simple. It's like respect your teammates, don't be late. Like to him, it's like that covers everything. Respect your team, respect your teammates, don't be late. And we can work our way off of everything else. To me, isn't that a better way of going about it than having 100 million rules that you want guys to follow?
Absolutely it is. And some of that comes with the territory. But, we talk all the time about culture in sports and what it is. I mean, to me, it comes down to what are the 2 or 3 things that you really either dwell upon or won't stand for, right? And you set it from there, and it goes.
Right.
And obviously, if you have grown adults and really good players, then people write glowing articles about what a great culture you have. If people act up,
even if the culture sucks, you're right.
Yeah. If people act up, if you keep selling your soul to guys like Josh Gordon, if the coach keeps saying the same things over and over again and they keep coming true, then your culture sucks. I mean, you've been there, right? And I think this kind of applies right now to certainly to the NBA Finals, where both teams are just exhausted physically and mentally, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But when we talked a little bit Browns last week at the last day of school, if you will. Part of the reason, other than just not being an idiot, that you don't get caught up in April, May, and June, is that these guys haven't locked in. You live it every day, Dre, where you're with a team and you're locked in. And yes, these guys have lives and they have wives and kids and girlfriends and sometimes all of the above, right? And they have commercials and endorsements and friends and family. But for that 6 months period, this is what you do. This is what Tito lives and dies. This is what the execs live and die. This is what the pitchers, even the ones that only pitch every 5 days, they have a routine in those 5 days. You're there. Yep. Well, the Browns are not even to that locked-in stage, right? So it's like the investment, the culture, all of that stuff, it doesn't come till later. And then that's why, obviously, we always say Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's everything else.
Absolutely.
But when teams dig down deep and don't want guys who are constantly assholes, who are constantly late, who are constantly drawing attention to themselves, it's because when you breathe that same air and lock in for that 4, 5, 6, 8 months, whatever it is, that air some days it just doesn't taste that good. Right? That person that's not a bad person is suddenly on your nerves because you're living, and you've got to have that makeup or you're going to have a miserable ride at it.
Right. And I think it plays into this, and I'm glad we're saying it this way. This isn't one of those, we're going to stand on that hill and try to preach to you, because I think we all, and this is my opinion, and I didn't even tell you I wanted to bring this up, but this is the night after the KD situation in the NBA Finals, and we almost did this podcast right after the game, which I would have had no problem doing, but I'm fine with doing it now. When we talk about the makeup of clubhouses, of how teams, their camaraderie or their lack of camaraderie, or liking each other, or playing for each other, or not giving shit about each other, I think a lot of us, and look, in this day and age of you either get the Jordan face or you get the ring, and then with social media and everyone being all-knowing when most know very little, I think the KD situation and the Golden State Warriors situation is very much a case study in how much we lack in truly knowing how a team runs and what makes a team go. I saw Klay Thompson last night after the game on Scott Van Pelt, and he's like, are you kidding me? We're not better without Kevin Durant. He's one of the best players in the world. We could put him on the 30th best team, and he would take that team to the playoffs. He goes, I'm sick of hearing that shit. He goes, we ignore it. And he said shit, and it went over TV, which I loved, because you know me. Anytime you can break the rules after midnight on TV or radio, you do it. But he basically said, he goes, it's bullshit that people keep saying that. He goes, this guy gave up, he's truly a warrior. He gave up everything that he had for us. He had no business doing it, and he went out and did it. And he goes, and we got still people out here that question how tough he is, question how tough we are. And maybe it's just a basketball thing. Maybe it's a social media thing. I texted you guys this last night. I feel horrible for the whole KD situation. And you and I have talked millions of times on this podcast. And we can talk about the series and everything else, but I just want to talk about Kevin Durant for a minute. Because what he does on social media and how he reacts sometimes to things leaves the door open for people to criticize and say things. I will not disagree with that. But I have said to you as well in times of past that I think he's the best case study of what professional athletes are in today's age than anyone else, because he does show the sensitivity to react. He shows the sensitivity to have a burner account and react when people talk about him. And as much as we want to sit here and say, and Boogie Cousins was great about this last night. He threw out the F word a couple times. Shout out to Boogie for being Boogie. It's like, these athletes are human beings, people. You talk shit about me enough, sooner or later, I don't care how many millions of dollars I got in the bank, I'm probably going to shoot back at you with a burner account. I've never done it. I promise you, I haven't had the time. Most of you suckers around here that try to do that ain't worth my time. But if you had 100 about you constantly, maybe you would react how Kevin Durant reacts. But I think the one thing that we saw last night in the last 24 hours, whether he should have played or shouldn't have played, is most of us have no idea what makes Kevin Durant tick. Most of us have no idea why he's the way he is and why he's sensitive to who he is and what he is. But I feel like after blowing out his Achilles last night, we should all probably take a step back when we think of guys. And you know I've had this role way before we had this podcast, and I brought it up on this podcast a million times. I don't ever question a guy or ever say a guy quit or say a guy's a quitter or a guy doesn't play hard, because we have no idea what's going on with their bodies. We have no idea the punishment that they've taken on and what they feel like day in and day out to prepare and get ready for a game. And if last night doesn't teach the dumbasses that think they're doctors over Twitter that we have no idea what's really going on with a player's body, and they think it's okay to call someone a quitter or say that someone doesn't play hard, well, you're a jackass and you always will be. I really felt bad for Kevin Durant last night because you could see in his teammates' eyes and teammates' faces that we all knew. And that's what sucks. And I hate saying this. You all knew when he went down, it was like, all right, that's his Achilles, and it's bad. And this changes the NBA for the next. They won that game, and if you watch the post game, it didn't seem like they won the game, Zach. The GM cries, that's a whole other conversation. But Steph Curry is damn near crying.
Yeah.
Draymond is damn near crying. Last night was a situation that you don't see very often. I just hope that the guys that pound their chest and think they're the smartest and funniest on Twitter, you too, Zach, take a step back and realize we don't know. We're not as all-knowing as we think we are.
Fuck off, Tubby. Anyway, you said it well, and there's a lot to unpack here, but you left one thing out. The despair on his opponents' faces, too, right? These guys know, and this isn't a Millionaires Club thing. This is what they do. Yes.
Right.
Right.
Even Drake.
Yeah.
Even Drake.
Yeah. Look, what drives the NBA? Drama, right? We'd all agree with that. And you could go deeper and dissect it and point it out, but we all agree with that. But what's made this, going back 5 days now, Dre, so good is this is real life drama because the longtime Kings, Goliath was down 3-1. And where was Kevin Durant and where did this Kawhi Leonard come from and Boardman gets paid and just the nation of Canada, just all of these things. And it was like, well, you never anybody that's ever watched the NBA knows you don't count out the Warriors, right? And you go to the last 3 minutes last night, and they were left for dead, and they didn't step on the throats and kill them. Anyway, here's what I'm trying to say. I think we could all agree that on some level, only Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant's agent, Bob Myers, Steve Kerr, and the Warriors doctors know exactly what was going on prior to last night, right? But I think we can all agree, whether you read The Athletic or not, that there was some peer pressure involved with him wanting to get back. And Kevin Durant probably wanted to get back. But what I'm saying is there was internal drama to an extent because the dynasty is teetering. They're down 3-1 and they're going on the road to play, right? And then you've got KD's future. You've got Klay's future. You've got the past 5 years of the Warriors. You've got all of this stuff. You've got Kawhi's future hanging in the balance. And what makes it all so great is, the injury happens, and it's terrible. I didn't mean to use great at the place that I used it there. But it still comes down to win or go home, right? And, yes, there are a million storylines here on what is the diagnosis. Did someone on the Warriors err greatly in saying that he couldn't possibly make it worse? Was it just a freak injury? But, man, it's about these teams having to pick up the pieces emotionally, physically, find a way to go on, and now you've got the greatest drama. And for the rare NBA case, it's on our TVs for 2.5 hours. It's on the court for 48 minutes. It's not outside anywhere else. Now, you're right. We could do 3 hours on the ramifications of KG's injury. Because, man, if the Warriors really screwed something up, that's a different story. He was headed for free agency in 3 short weeks. That's a different story. Might this keep him there? Will he ever be the same player? It was a landmark night, I think, in a lot of ways, a mentally exhausting night in a lot of ways. And I think, man, if you're Toronto, you just have to be sick because it was there for you. You grabbed that lead back. You took their best shot. Yeah. Did they miss a 3 in the first half? The Warriors, I know they missed 1, but not many more than that, right?
Yeah.
My goodness, really good basketball.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I've concluded this here ramble.
And the thing is, like you said something. No, but you said to me that's the beauty of the game. The last 3 minutes, it wasn't pretty. You can just tell there were two teams playing desperately for their lives. Like no matter what play you called, no matter who you wanted out there, no matter what play you've had in your back pocket, it didn't matter. So the basketball game itself became a tad ugly. It wasn't as beautiful as maybe. To me, we finally had the NBA Finals. It was like a heavyweight fight where both fighters, it's the 10th round of a 12-round fight, and they're exhausted and they're giving everything that they have, so it doesn't look as good. And you may get a counterpunch, and hell, even Kawhi Leonard. Factor of this and KD, what happened to KD being happening all at once. It's a culmination of like the last 2 years of the NBA in the we know how hurt someone is, we don't know how hurt someone is. We have the right to tell him, call him a fool. obviously we have the right to self-push somebody because he didn't play when he was 100%. Kawhi Leonard did not play for a year, and the people in San Antonio want to crucify the guy. He hasn't looked completely healthy all playoffs as well. Last night, and this isn't me beating him up, that may have been his worst game in the NBA in the last 3 weeks, in my opinion. Now, somebody out there may say, no, he played bad in round one, round two. Maybe, but I just thought he missed more shots than we were used to seeing him miss. Andre Iguodala, I thought, played unbelievable defense, doubled him perfectly and at the right time in the last play of the game. I love how many, so last night was one of the nights, so I stayed away from Twitter. I read Twitter, but I stayed away from saying much because you just see how many people really don't pay attention to the game. People are like, now, Nort, the coach, does deserve some. I get why he called 2 timeouts at once to get rest. But when your team's on a roll and you got the claw going ham, you don't slow it down until the claw tells you needs to be slowed down.
Yeah.
He really may have lost that game with those 2 times, with that timeout. But for all the people that are like, how in 15 seconds don't you get Kawhi Leonard the ball? Well, the problem that he ran into was they called those 2 timeouts, and he got the ball basically at half court. Because he had the ball at half court, and because everyone knows he goes to his right and wants to go to the elbow, Andre Iguodala, who was one of the best athletes in the NBA probably a decade ago, now one of the most intelligent players in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Where did he meet him? At the double one. He met him before he could get to the right elbow. That got the ball out of Kawhi's hand. Game over, basically.
Yeah, it was like a defensive clinic. You could not draw that up at a basketball coaching clinic any better on how to get the ball out of the other team's best player's hands in that situation. Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And that last shot, I'm pretty sure, and look, Draymond's a pain in the ass. He drives everybody crazy. Nobody likes him. He's the Bill Laimbeer of this century. For you young kids, go look him up. He's white. He was an asshole, but he was great. If he was on your team, you loved him. But Draymond is the black version. I know we're not allowed to compare blacks and whites, but I do it because we don't care. And it's A to Z.
God, you've never made me feel older than you just did right now, and making me stop and realize that there probably are listeners to this podcast who never saw Bill Laimbeer play.
Oh, man. Think about the stuff they would say about him on Twitter. Him and Rick Mahorn, they would have, Twitter would have lost their mind. Social media would have lost their mind on those two. Yeah. But Draymond did a great job of not getting clipped and being behind the big man, and he closed out on that last shot. Look, making jokes on Kyle Lowry is great, but it's hard for me to make fun of a point guard that's got a body built like mine. He is what he is. And I texted you guys in the first quarter, Lowry going Lowry. I know he missed the shot, but I'm pretty sure Draymond got a hand on that, and his closeout was fantastic, and the closeout only happened because he moved great without the ball in front of him. And for as much as I hate giving Draymond credit, he made a great play way off the ball for a play only most coaches would recognize what he was able to do when he was 2 plays away from the play happening. And they don't lose on the last second shot because Draymond moved and had his body where it was supposed to be at the right time, at the right place. Iguodala, they made championship plays in the last minute is what I'm getting at.
No.
And I don't know if they can win 2 more games, Zach, but they put on a clinic of how you win and how you show up when your back's against the wall.
Well, let's talk about that timeout. Momentum is real, and the Raptors had it, right? But you got to believe. Yeah. I didn't stay up for the post-game presser because I'm too old. You got to believe Nick Nurse was thinking, okay, I have to get my guys a breeze. Kawhi specifically, but I have to. I mean, the Raptors are down to about 4.5 guys, right? It's amazing how much they've been able to get away with playing Marc Gasol in this series, right? They just don't have any guys. When Norm Powell and his white T-shirt have to play in the NBA Finals, they don't have any guys. The problem with that is that Steph needed a break too. He had a miserable second half. But, you can say that was certainly a moment in the game because the clock stopped. But there were still, 9 possessions left in that game. And if one of them goes differently, the Raptors win. So I cannot sit here and say that's the worst coaching move ever and it costs the Raptors the NBA Finals because that will not be the case regardless of what happens on Thursday or Monday, correct? It's a tough situation, and he's trying to look out for his guys by taking that time out there, right? That's it didn't work, but in every sport, every level, every game, that's the risk that you run. What is the time? It's not just what I call it. What's the timing of the situation? How do we handle it right here? And so many times in basketball, one empty possession leads to another. One stretch just comes at the wrong time. I mean, like I said, these guys are all gassed. I mean, you said Kyle Lowry's built like you, and he sure is. I mean, the alternative is to play Fred VanVleet, who's built like me. So, like I said, I'm amazed by as much as Gasol has been able to play in the series. I mean, the Warriors are playing Boogie, who gave them some huge contributions last night, but really looks like basketball isn't for him anymore.
Yeah, Boogie needs to get his body back. He needs to take care of his body. And you know what? When you've dealt with 2 leg injuries like he has the last year and a half, I totally get it. But he did save their ass. He saved them. They don't win without Boogie last night, what he did when Durant went down.
Yes, and you know, but now, I mean, Looney tried to come back and play through a broken freaking collarbone. He's also headed to free agency. Hats off to him. Tough guys. I mean, they have to play Jordan Bell, who has no business now being out there, because the alternative to Jordan Bell is Jonas Jerebko, who now might actually have to play with no KD and with no limit.
Right?
I mean, like, this is wild, man. And I got to tell you, over the next 48 or 96 minutes, you know, we saw the Warriors show that they absolutely have to be 6 feet and a half in the grave before they're going to the grave. But I will not be surprised by anything that happens, because both teams are gassed. The adjustments have been made. I mean, it's just rolled out there. Try to hang on and see what really happens, because this is Kevon Looney. This is totally Looney, and it's really good TV. And like I said, bad for the NBA in losing Kevin Durant. And bad for the Warriors and all that, but great for the NBA in that people are glued and that this is awesome. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think I knew the Raptors would not get swept, but I did not think this would be a great series. Did you?
No, but no, I was with you. I thought Toronto was like, I think you're killing Gasol. Gasol is not the player he was 4 years ago, 3 years ago. But it goes back to he's a skilled individual. You know what I mean? Like, even the Boogie thing. Like, Boogie's not the Boogie that we all knew 2 years ago. And I think all of us, I'm not just saying you, I think it's easy that I thought Toronto was going to give him some problems, because I felt like Kawhi was the best player on the court. I didn't know if he'd have enough help to win more than 2 games. I knew that Golden State was beat up. So I thought it would be. I thought without KD it was going to be a chance, but it's gone a completely different way.
Yeah, I'm not killing Gasol, the player, as much as I'm saying part of the beauty of Golden State for years has been making you play their game and lumbering 7-footers you can usually play in 3 and 4 minute stretches and try to pound them, but otherwise the way they drag people out to the perimeter, the way they get up and down, it's just not that kind of game, right? And
you're right. Yeah. I guess I say that because most people. You're right. I guess I say that because most people listening to us, they hear us say something, and everything is so all or nothing in today's world of how people speak.
Yes.
That I know that Gasol is a skilled player. That's why I never understood Boogie going to Golden State, because I was like, because what you just said, I was like, that doesn't fit Boogie.
Yeah, he kind of
blowing out his Achilles.
Yeah.
He's coming out from blowing out his Achilles. He's probably 25 pounds overweight. You're going to put him in that offense.
Yeah.
Then he blows out his hamstring. It's like, it doesn't fit. But he is a skilled basketball player. Marc Gasol is a skilled basketball player. And what's happening, because the Golden State Warriors can't play at that frantic pace, is Gasol is able to make his mark on the game, right?
Yes.
He's able to, they run their stuff high post off of him offensively, and it's awesome because he's a great passer. Now, I don't like him shooting threes, but they can run their offense off of him. He's kept balls alive through offensive rebounds. I will say this, and this is weird to say. Steve Kerr is one of the best coaches we've seen all time, and we never give him credit because he's got an all-time starting 5, or starting 4. Nurse is a good coach, very good coach. But to me, the 2 wins Golden State have had have been because the head coach on the other side, and we never give him credit because his players are unbelievable. Steve Kerr is one of the best coaches we've seen. I love what Steve Kerr – look at the names you just stated to me, and look what he's gotten out of them when they've needed it most.
No, you're right. Hey, lingering lesson from last night, whether you like the NBA, love the NBA, or indifferent to the NBA. I always say, young people, be careful. When you're always online, you're always online. Last night was not the time to have a hot take on Twitter. It was not the time to jump in. There was so much happening with the emotion of the initial reaction to Durant's injury, to what really happened, to who do we blame. I mean, you've covered it right here, Jerry. What do we do? There has to be someone to blame. There has to be an instant judgment one way or the other. That's the society that we live in. And the fact is, everybody involved with Golden State and Kevin Durant, and maybe the New York Knicks too, wants to fucking throw up over what happened to Kevin Durant. Nobody wished one bit of ill will. And even when you can want to get mad about the reaction and generalize, the one guy on the baseline that was waving good, that had too many drinks and was waving goodbye to Kevin Durant, he looks like an idiot because he's all over Instagram today. We don't know him. Is he really an awful person? Did the whole country of Canada conspire to? Are they suddenly awful people because of that?
No.
You know, and so again, this is why our benefit here, where we talk in a 40-minute format and decided to wait 12 hours. Like there's lots of people, our colleagues, that had to go on and pretend to be mad about something for 4 hours this morning without much information. You know, it's great that it's passion. And guys, I'm not going to waste my time lecturing on you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, because if you really are that much of an asshole, we can't change you. You already kind of alluded to that, Dre. It's competition. It's awesome. We're all absorbed in it, consumed by it, by some form or fashion, and it's an unfortunate reaction. But I don't think that really anyone meant ill will, and everyone wishes the best for Kevin Durant. And more specifically, there are still 30 freaking teams that would give Kevin Durant the full max contract tomorrow, whether he has an Achilles or not. And that's what is going to be interesting.
Can I say something that's not going to be popular, but I feel like I truly believe it in my heart of hearts? And if you don't agree, tell me. What happened when he got hurt by those fans was disgusting. And I'm willing to bet, and this is no judgment, this is no tea at anybody else, that what happened there would have happened in probably every other NBA arena and every NFL stadium and every MLB stadium. Maybe not as harsh in some. I think that we are such a society, such a barbaric society nowadays, and we put everybody in these arenas and we pump them up and we get them full of the juice that makes them feel the greatest and the strongest and the toughest, and we put on our blinders as to who we are, what we are, that we become other people that we would never be in our everyday life. That I think the testosterone gets going, and I think that we just start feeling so good. We want our team to win so bad. You know, the Cavs are putting up signs of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're at the free throw line, and we put pictures of Ben Roethlisberger up, and we get so hyped, and we want to win that game so damn bad that our morals, our moral compass goes out the window. And as you said, it's not all the way who we are as people, but the barbarians in us comes out, and we just react. Well, and I'm putting all of us in it. Yeah. I would like to think, I'm 98% sure I wouldn't cheer if I saw a guy go out and be injured. But I can tell you, when I was in college, I was 18, 19 years old, and I went to a Steelers-Cowboys game, and Deion Sanders landed on his neck. And I'll never forget the Steelers fans going ape shit crazy, cheering because they thought he was going to be done. Or I remember Mike Wervin getting his neck broke in Philadelphia, and the fans going crazy, and I'm just sitting there going, are you serious? This isn't really how people react? So this isn't something that just started. But I just think that in the way we live and the way our society is now, I wasn't surprised the Canadians reacted that way. And thank you for saying it. Just because it may have been 30,000 people at that game last night or 25, whatever. It was only about 800 that made an ass of themselves, probably. Yeah. And that does not represent the entire country of Canada, people. There were just a couple jackasses, had a couple too many pops, got too involved, and lost it because that's what they do on their video games when they can hit reset and nobody has feelings or real people.
Well, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, just 2 games ago, we saw a minority owner of the Warriors lose his mind in the heat of battle, right?
Right.
And he got properly punished for it. It's just kind of is what it is. Guys, our sponsors to this podcast are Cleveland Scene, Honeymoon Grill, and American Fireworks. From time to time, we play American Fireworks Glory Days. And Dre, again, speaking of Twitter and not getting caught up, I usually don't get involved in these survey questions or these throwbacks or these polls or whatever. But Sunday morning,
he makes them up every 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. You can be in one every 5 minutes if you want. Yeah.
Do you think I'm good at Twitter? I don't know. Do you think I have the littlest stick on the radio station? We'll be right back with more.
But Sunday morning, I was laying there not doing much of anything. I'd been up early. I decided to go back to bed, so I was just kind of scrolling Twitter, laying around, and one of them came up. What's a song you're proud to know word for word? So I figured we'd play a little American Fireworks Glory Days in this way. I gave my answer, Tupac Hit 'Em Up, which was a little bit sarcastic, obviously, because if you know the lyrics to that, they're pretty extreme. it was really an experience hearing that song as a 16-year-old, really naive suburban white kid. But I still could rap it word for word. So let's play a little Glory Days. Take me back. Take me, teenage Andre Knott. What is a song that takes you not only to a moment, but that you right now, if you had to, could give every single word of that song right now in 2018?
Fingertips on your hips, because I know. It's Round and Round, Tupac. Round and round, round we go. I get around. I'd be that. The End of the Road, Boys to Men is one of mine in my back pocket. I used to even sing to my kids, my daughter, and this is a damn shame because this is a whole nother moral compass thing. R. Kelly, I Believe I Can Fly. Was like I used to sing it to my daughter and get her to go to bed. I have terrible pipes and I can't sing, but it's a song I remembered. So those are the things that come to me immediately. I know I got some Biggie in there that I can remember from that time, but Round and Round by Tupac would be one of the first that I know word for word, line for line, easily. I could say it live because nobody knows what the fuck they talking about.
All right. So you mentioned End of the Road. Great story I will never forget. I was a freshman in high school, right? And we were doing poetry in English class. And so you know, who knows what we read or how it was presented. But then eventually we wrote our own poems and we presented them to the class. And so for like 3 days, half the class was us presenting our own poems. And then the other half was the teacher had brought in from his other classes poems and basically presented them to us for kind of a second grade, because the teacher wanted to make sure that peer reviews were part of this, because he didn't, he was in his 40s and he was, grading poems written by 15 and 16-year-olds. Right. So
right.
I remember this for one specific reason, not because I had some friends that were really into Boys to Men and dressed like them and all that stuff. But at one point we're sitting in this class and God knows it was just like a lot of the others. And he starts reading this poem, and one kid turned in Boys to Men End of the Road as his poem, trying to get away with it, and would have gotten away with it if it wouldn't have been for the peer review part of the poetry program. And I just will never forget the freaking laughter in that classroom as people were like, some people being like, oh, I don't want to be the rat. I don't want to be the rat. And finally one girl being like, yeah, Mr. Smith, that's definitely a song by Boys to Men. That definitely, Timmy didn't write that poem himself.
That little rat. That's hilarious, though. That's hilarious. All right. Since we're doing the throwback, don't forget them fireworks. Best fireworks in town. I'm going to tell an embarrassing story about me. From around, I was like in 8th or 9th grade. And Ralph Tresvant, he was a part of New Edition. And he had broke off and left when Bobby Brown had left. And a matter of fact, he got his solo album out before Bobby Brown. And that drove Bobby Brown crazy because Bobby Brown left. Well, he left New Edition because he was ready to break out and have his prerogative. He wanted to be nasty and be himself. He wanted to show us. It's what happens in every boy band, every group. They wanted to branch out. So Ralph Tresvant was more clean cut, more he had better pipes, could sing, and he came out with a song called "Sensitivity." You need a man with sensitivity, a man like me. All right, here's the embarrassing part. So I was like in 8th grade, maybe 8th or 9th grade, and there was this girl that I loved, that I was all about. I even called into 88.1 FM, and you know how you can dedicate songs to people. This is so fucking embarrassing. I can't believe I'm telling this. I called in and got that song, and then I wrote a poem, but I used all Ralph Tresvant. He had like a little rhyme in it and everything. And I wrote a note to this girl, and I wrote the song "Sensitivity" to her from Ralph Tresvant.
What was her name? I'm looking her up on Instagram right now.
What'd you say?
I said, what was her name? I'm looking her up right now.
I would never tell you. She was like 3 grades. She was like 2 grades older than me too. She was half black, half Hawaiian. Just before you start talking that other mess. Rob knows who it is. Hopefully, Rob is listening to this podcast, driving off the side of the road, because he's gonna laugh his ass off because he knows the girl, the situation, everything. But I wrote her a letter with sensitivity, and it worked. She gave me a kiss 3 days later. Then she left me for some big football player. named Brad Jackson that went to Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, and then he played for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
That's the rest of that story.
Congrats to Brad Jackson. Congrats, Andre.
Yeah, B-Jack. My boy B-Jack. He does, you know what? He actually works with my boy Chris Miller in Baltimore now, doing Baltimore Ravens post-game and doing stuff like that. Akron Zone. Brad Jackson played
I know him because he's from Akron, and I don't know him personally, but I know the story. But one of the things I think is really cool that the NFL does, if you ever play in a Super Bowl, the NFL does a special Super Bowl game ball and sends it to your high school to be placed in the trophy case or whatever. And that's how I know, because I remember reading a story about Firestone getting that from Brad. I mean, that's such an awesome thing that they do. And that's how I know that name. And he's been doing that for a long time. He's kind of made his living in Baltimore, D.C. area after his career, right?
He has. He's my dude. And that's the crazy. And I always tell these stories about life, and just I hope people find something to grab onto and to make them believe in themselves. Man, Brad, like, my parents got divorced when, like, I grew up around Andre Smith, who was Bingo Smith's son, and Brad Jackson, and, like, those guys are all 3-4 years older than me. So when Brad was at Firestone, his whole thing was always like, Dre, you're a great athlete, you know, do what you got to do. But if you get on that field and save me in Firestone, I'm going to bust that ass. So my freshman year, Brad was a senior, and he returned a punt against St. V, and he looked over after he scored, because he was fast as hell. He was a wide receiver in high school. Went to Cincinnati, became an undersized linebacker, went to the Ravens, happened to be there the year they won the Super Bowl. He was a linebacker with Ray Lewis and all those guys, but he was like a special teams guy, nickel and dime linebacker, but he made a career out of it. And, like, for me, he was the fastest guy in the neighborhood growing up. But he kind of taught me, he made me dream, man. He was one of those guys that was like, if Brad can make it, I can make it somehow, some way. So shout out to Brad Jackson. I haven't talked to him in probably 6 to 10 years, but you need a man with sensitivity, Ralph Tresvant. Now he's going to try to beat me up for knowing this story.
Did he end up with the girl or no?
B-Jack was the man back in the day. I'm sure he did. Oh, man. I can't believe I told that story. I'm in shock that I told that story.
I wrote some bad love poems in my time, but I actually wrote them. I don't think I copycatted them, so plagiarized them. The word went blind. I think my brain is still partially cut off from the water incident right before we went on the air.
Right.
All right, guys, programming note. I am taking off on a trip that, given the circumstances, I might be able to extend into a little bit longer of a personal trip. So we might not have a podcast for 10-ish days or so. I don't know that. I might be back next Tuesday. As planned, the Browns cut off their spring stuff a week earlier than they have, so it's allowed me a little bit of flexibility, and we'll just kind of see what happens. I mean, anybody that hosts me doesn't want me sticking around in one place for too long, so maybe I'll just come back again, but we'll see. I won't be here on Father's Day, which means my dad doesn't have to work on my car that day or cook me dinner, so that's good.
When are you leaving, Punk?
Thursday. What's today? Tuesday? I'm leaving on Thursday.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, and along those lines, let's just say this. I know mine listens. Yours listened once or twice, and I think he's still scarred from it. But our dads are really, really significant figures in our lives. And me and my brother, who's currently crippled with torn Achilles, we would not. It's not a stretch to say we would not be breathing members of society to the extent that we even are. Without both of our parents, but without specifically my dad, who's never been a man of many words, but has always kind of been a man of action, a man of the F word, but he makes his point, has bailed our asses out many, many times. You guys have heard stories about him on this podcast. And so because he's probably listening, because frankly, him and my mom both need something to do, but I know they listen. And because we certainly won't have another one before Father's Day, and it might be a week or so after that. I just want to say to Big Reg, thank you for everything. I appreciate you keeping me afloat, and I'll be over before I leave to get that $20 that you offered me. Thank you.
He ain't lying either. You get that $20. Shout out to Big Reg. Shout out to Andre, number one. There's not a day that goes by in my life, and any success I've had or anything that's been offered to me or anything that's happened to me, where I don't think about the sacrifices that my father has made for me, that continues to make for me, how my father has gone about life, and not only helping me or helping my sisters, but just any kid, anybody that's around him, and he will to the day that he passes. And no matter how many times I can win awards, no matter how much money I can make in my career, no matter how many places I can go, I know that what I'm truly living up to is the legacy that my dad has placed in front of me, and being a good person and being a man that stands for the right thing, even when it's difficult to do that. And I hope that all of you guys have a father or father figure that you can look at that makes you want to be a better person and makes you want to be a stronger person. And I think just to go off of what Zach has said, that's our lives in a nutshell. Yeah, we've become our own persons. Yes, we're old, fat, drunks, but we know that we live up to a legacy and live up to something that's bigger than us. And I think that comes from rivets from my father, and I know it rivets from yours. And we appreciate it. Yes, my dad probably is scarred from hearing me say the F word 15 different ways on this podcast, but he also still pushes me to be the best that I can possibly be at all that I'm doing, and not allowing people from the outside make us who we are, but keep pushing ourselves. And I appreciate that. The best thing in life that I have now, and I can't wait to one day be able to do this with my son, is that I can sit around, drink beers, hang out with my dad, and watch games, and it's like hanging out with my best friend because he is.
Because he's your twin to start with.
My life. Yeah, no doubt. Wait till AJ. Hey, man, you know the one rule I got about my kids and playing sports. AJ, I just got to tell this story. It plays into Father's Day. We got a big rule that Zach will always hold me true to, and all my other friends will hold me true to. I'm one of the proudest guys in the world of who my kids are and what my kids do, whether it's on the field, off the field, or anywhere else. I'm super proud of them, but I never want to be the guy that's constantly putting up pictures and putting up videos of what they're doing against other little kids. But I got to tell you, last Saturday, I got to see the true scope of AJ Knott. He's done very well playing soccer. He's played with kids a little bit older than him because he wanted to play on a team with his sister before his sister basically got away from playing with them on a team. But he's scored a lot of goals. He's knocked a lot of people on their asses, girls and guys. And I've had to tell him, you don't slide tackle at 4 years old. You don't slide tackle 6-year-olds. Even though I know that's what you do and you're strong enough and it's fun to slide tackle people. And every week, even when I'm on the road, I got to tell my in-laws and I got to tell my dad, please tell AJ that he can't slide tackle the little girls. He's going to become the most hated kid in Medina. He's also the darkest on the field. So last week, my wife couldn't make the game. I mean, we all know my wife's a big soccer player in my household. I'm fine with my kids playing it because it gets them in shape and it puts them on a team. And my daughter won't even play anymore because she's sick of getting slide tackled by kids like her brother. So I take my daughter, I take AJ to his game. My father-in-law shows up, and AJ finally met his match, Zach. He met a kid named Cameron. Shout out to Cameron and his dad. Cameron was just as fast as AJ and just as much of an asshole, knocking and tripping over every little kid to get the score, get the ball, and score. And I got to tell you, AJ and Cameron are the type of kids when you watch 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds play soccer, they kind of ruin the game, but they kind of make the game great because they are the game. You know what I'm like?
Yeah.
They're fastest on the field. They can outrun everybody. They can, like AJ, it can run down the defensive side and stop every goal, and then he can take the ball and go all the way back the other way. But anyway, it's not about that. AJ finally met his match. And anybody as an athlete or anybody in any sort of, your life starts when you finally meet somebody that can do everything you can do, right? Like when you haven't met anybody that can do it.
That's right.
And AJ got knocked on his ass a couple times early in the game, and I can see in his face he wanted to cry a little bit. He was kind of bewildered a little bit. And I got to tell you, I had the biggest smile ever because I'm going, all right, little shit. Now we're going to find out how tough you really are. Now, my wife would have been crying and telling AJ it was okay, but it was great because it was only fathers there. My dad, my father-in-law, and me.
Yeah,
and we're going, hey, AJ, you want to be a tough guy. You got your match. And I got to say, he came out for a couple plays. He kind of had, I want to cry like a little, I can't say what I wanted to say. But he stood there, and I go, you want some water? He said, yes. I gave him a little water. He went back in, and he played his ass off. And him and his Cameron dude almost came to blows, but it was a respectful, to me, it was respectful competition. And for me, that was the best Father's Day gift ever, is that the little that I'm doing and all that my wife is doing and all that my parents are doing and all that her parents are doing, our kids are turning out all right. I love watching my kid compete. I love watching his sister laugh at him and help him compete. And he walked up with a sense of pride, and they gave each other a hug after the game. And I know he's only 4, and it made me feel better when I found out this kid is going to first grade. Because I looked at, and my father-in-law looked at me, and he goes, I think we got him just where we need to have him right now. I go, yeah. So we were having a cookout that same night, Saturday night, and all the kids are over. Pete's son is over. You know, Pete was in Michigan getting ass drunk in NASCAR. My buddy Rob had his son over, and I sent you this picture. But since you brought up Father's Day, I just got to give these Father's Day moments as we wrap it up, because these are the moments that make being a father the greatest. And we blew up, like, we had a carnival in my backyard last Saturday. It was blow up this, blow up that, you know, like pools, like it was a kid's, they were euphoric. They didn't want to eat. They just wanted to break everything and spray water. So Rob's son and Josh's son, who we call Pete, they're in this little pool in my backyard, and they got these squirt guns with water. And lo and behold, and this is the same day AJ just had this soccer game that made me so proud. Scored like 4 goals and beat up a kid, got beat up by the kid, whatever else. And my father-in-law stops by and he goes, hey, did you tell Jenny about how AJ met his match and took it to him? And, like, my father-in-law was still geeked up and happy about it 9 hours later. Like, he came in and I was like, hey, take a beer, Joe. He's like, hey, did you tell my daughter about our boy today? And I was like, yeah. I go, kind of. I go, but she might get mad when we tell her everything. And he laughed. He goes, that's the best part. So they're in the backyard. The boys are in the backyard, in my backyard. And they're spraying, like, and I'm telling them, you can splash in the pool. We had, like, this new slip and slide. I'm like, you can do all that stuff, but you don't get grown-ups wet. So what do the kids do? One of Jen's girlfriends, one of her best friends of her whole life, that Zach has known all his life, that Zach hangs out with her mom doing, what's the game you guys play out in the water?
Trivia.
With all those idiots out there.
Bar trivia.
They do trivia.
Yeah.
So, like, this is the 6 degrees of separation of the A to Z podcast come together. We got these little boys back in our pool, and they already know. This girl that we've both known our whole life, she comes with her new son, and he's too young to be in the pool with them. And he's watching it. She's trying to hold him. And lo and behold, what does our sons do? They load up the water gun and they spray her and get her wet. And I just told them not to. And on one hand, I'm laughing my ass off as I'm taking a picture so I can send it to Zach and say, even our boys at this age know exactly who to attack. And I can't even say what I want to truly say, but when I sent that
you just
picture
said
to
it
you,
all,
how
my
you
friend.
We've been an asshole to her for 30 years, and our kids are going to continue.
Just let me say
for the
this:
next 30.
for as real and genuine as all of that we just said was, I think some of you, the longtime listeners, and you on the other end of this line would agree that there's a possibility that the funniest moment in the history of the A to Z podcast is me telling the story of my dad standing at the bottom of the stairs talking to the dog, saying, wag your tail at me, you fucking bitch. I don't even like you, you fucking bitch.
It really is. I'm about to cry.
I'm sitting here crying.
Oh, shit. It really is one of the best ever.
All right, I got time for one more story here. 7 years ago this weekend, Kent State, one of the ultimate all-time Cinderella stories, made the College World Series, and I was working at Fox. We made it a priority for me to go and cover it. And so they played on Saturday before Father's Day. They got beat. They had practice on Sunday out at some high school in the suburbs of Omaha, Nebraska. And I was there. Some other people were there. And at one point, I was just sitting in a dugout with Scott Strickland, who's now the coach at Georgia, was the coach at Kent at the time. And he was like, Zach, we didn't win yesterday. We might not win tomorrow. We're not promised anything like this again. He goes, I just want to tell you that my dad's here and my son's here, and on Father's Day, I'm getting a team ready to play another game in the College World Series. How good is this? And at that moment, I thought, well, even as a 183 lifetime hitter for the Manchester T-shirt Orioles, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad, and that's certainly true. So, again, thanks to all you guys that listen. Thanks, as always, to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks for making this happen. I'm Zach Jackson. He's the father of the number 4 ranked 6-year-old soccer player in Medina County, and we will talk to you next week on A to Z.
Hey, for more on that story, turn into the Indians game this week, and I'm sure Tom Hamilton will tell you more about that College World Series.
Konnichiwa, Tom Hamilton.